Welcome back. This is Checkpoint. We're getting into our discussion in just a moment, but I want to remind you of a big event that is taking place right now in the country, and that is the annual Malaika Awards ceremony that seeks to recognize persons with disability who've made a great contribution in their community. This is the second year running that we are partnering with them on this, and our correspondent, George Maringa, is attending that ceremony at this moment. George, good evening. Has the event officially began?
Yes, good evening to you, Yvonne. The event has officially begun. As you rightly put it, as you can see behind me, it is the Malaika Tribute Awards. And as you rightly put it, it is the award ceremony is going to recognize people with disabilities who have made tremendous effort or who have achieved, literally people living with disability who have made a tremendous effort or have achieved something unique or anything unique so far. And so far we have had two awards that have been issued out. There is one that has the Young Achievers Award to the Sports Personality of the Year and also to the Arts Personality of the Year. And each, maybe to mention even to our viewers, is that each winner who gets the award also takes home 100,000 Kenya shillings. And joining me now to give us more perspective of these awards is none other than Daddy Owen. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, what inspired you to sort of be holding this event and recognizing people with disabilities?
In the year 2001, I lost one of my eye. And after losing my eye, it was a real challenge even to walk in the streets because everyone was looking at me and they're wondering what happened to this guy. And others were feeling like maybe I'm not able to see well. Others were feeling like, hey, this guy is weird. And others were looking at me like, hey, this guy can't get help. But one time, a guy called me and helped me and did an operation on my eye. And through that, at least the black part returned, but vision, of course, now I only use one of my eye. So through that, what I went through and what I can say, like a small discrimination that I faced, I was inspired to say, let me, with my influence, help the other people that I know, that I see, that I know what they're going through, because I've been there and I know what they go through. So that was the real inspiration that through that I started the Malaika Tribute Awards.
Okay. And these Tribute Awards, do the participants apply or do you just select them?
Okay, the main reason why it's called Tribute Awards, we pay tribute to them because, you know, you can't compete to win. So we pay tribute to them. And we have a panel of judges who come from the National Council for Persons Living with Disability, who sit down the whole year, and we always come up with 100 names. Then we shortlist them to 10 people, and eventually the 10 winners is who we award every December 3rd, World Disability Day. But this time round we just postponed for 1 week because we had issues here and there, but all in all, it has happened, and you can see everyone is happy and they're celebrating.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The President has volunteered to invite 20 of those who will be awarded tonight. What's your take on that?
That's a very good thing, but that's a very good thing because it just shows you that there's someone, apart from us, there's someone who is ahead there, on top there, who is noticing what we are doing. And to be honest, these guys, I call them angels. Our angels tonight, they're here, they celebrate, they enjoy, they know that people love them, and there's someone who's watching what they're doing. And apart from just us, now you can see even the President now has acknowledged them and has invited them for lunch or dinner. Yes.
Thank you so much, Daddy Owen. Yvonne, as you rightly put it, this is a big event happening here in Carnival, at the Carnival here in Nairobi County, and we'll be keeping it tabs here at Carnival to bring more of this event or the award ceremony that seeks to award people living with disabilities who have achieved, as Daddy Owen rightly put it, it is paying tribute to people who have made exceptional input in the society. Yvonne.
Indeed. Thank you, George Maringa. That is at the Malaika Awards. It is indeed a night with the angels. Congratulations to all those who've already won and those who will continue to win awards this evening right there at the Carnival grounds. All right, so let's talk about the situation in the country right now as of tonight. We understand NASA has postponed the planned swearing-in of Raila Odinga as the People's President this coming Tuesday. That's on Jamhuri Day. But there's so much more talk going on in the country surrounding where we are post-election and how we move forward. So tonight. Steve Ogola and Harrison Kinyanjui, both lawyers, join me on the show tonight. Your input and your feedback is welcome. The hashtag is checkpoint at Yvonne Okwara. Please do send those in. I'd like to start with the reactions to that announcement today from NASA regarding the planned swearing in. Said postponed it to a later date. Harrison, your thoughts?
NASA has been engaged in what I would classify as a political Ponzi scheme. And being a Ponzi scheme, unfortunately, it did not deliver, as is usual with every Ponzi scheme. First of all, the characteristics of a Ponzi scheme are very evident, self-evident. From the time they ask the followers to donate through some M-Pesa account, they turn around and say that we will now boycott the services of the provider of that M-Pesa account. And they promise the followers that they will be going to Canaan. And suddenly their chief lieutenant, Raila Odinga, says that he's not interested in leading them to Canaan anymore through the legal process, that is through the ballot. And eventually he then says that he's not even interested in going to the Supreme Court, and he leaves that to the civil society. And then finally he says that he doesn't even recognize the government of the day. What is that? Suddenly he tells the Kenyan people, you know, I wanted to swear in myself as a president of the Republic of Kenya, but I've changed my mind. This is like a political terrorist. He has wrapped around himself this self-detonating bomb meant to destroy the political and the democratic platform. And his acolytes are there egging him on, go ahead and detonate this. And then suddenly someone tells him, come on, you cannot detonate it at all. So you will self-destruct. And then now today we hear, you know, after listening to those voices, we have rethought our position. Since the Ponzi scheme failed, now we have postponed this detonation. I mean, you see a confused lot. And these are the people who are saying they would like to lead this country into the next democratic phase. I'm afraid it can't be from the totality of those actions.
All right. Steve?
Thanks, Yvonne. I think what has happened, the postponement is, to be honest, a victory for common sense because it just reflected a lack of political decency, which partly Harrison has spoken to, but is not spoken to it broadly, because this lack of decency or lack of a matching culture, that a political culture that matches the expectation of the Constitution, is a plague that affects both Jubilee and NASA. It's only that now it's more visible on NASA's part, because NASA wants to continue the electoral justice agitation. Jubilee is comfortable because they have won at the ballot, and that win has been affirmed by the Supreme Court. So there's nothing to contest about, and therefore they can assume the high tower, claim and say, be conditioned within the rule of law. All of us know, Yvonne, that in the electioneering period, I saw the falsification of the law every step of the way by both NASA and Jubilee, and that is well documented. But to this limited question, why I say it's a victory for common sense is that the swearing in can only happen once. And if you look at Article 141, it is the swearing in of the president-elect. If you are not elected, because the swearing in presupposes there's been an election, Raila did not go to that election, so he can't be sworn in within the terms of the Constitution. It was meant at best to mock the presidency and to continue to delegitimize that presidency. And at worst, perhaps, could trigger some offenses, like personation of the person of the president, subversion, and at worst, treason. But we would have waited to see what they would have done on the Tuesday. But I think for now, I hope they don't, honestly, Yvonne, I hope NASA does not come back to reinstate the claims of swearing in. They can find other ways. In fact, even us as lawyers, I hope if there's time, we can suggest what needs to be done to improve our electoral experience so that in 2022, we can say that these are the lessons that were documented and learned from 2017, and that is how we can say that we are growing as a democracy.
Okay, one of the things that NASA had claimed, in what was going to happen on the 12th was, beyond the swearing in, that it was going to be the launch of the People's Assembly. Now, the legality of that aside, they said one of the biggest things they want to start to institute is electoral reforms. Do you think that is, a valid conversation to have, regardless of NASA, Raila, swearing in, the president is duly in office and has been sworn in. Do you think there's any merit to the calls for electoral reform, Harrison?
It's just an excuse, in my view. Why I say so is that this cannot be a genuine motivation for the sort of actions that we see. How does electoral reforms get impacted upon by a so-called boycott of Safaricom services? I don't see the nexus. That has not been established. And I do not think there is anything other than what my friend has said. The search for relevance. Raila has lost it in the sense that he doesn't have the ballot upon which he can say that he should be sworn in. Article 137 of the Constitution says very well that the president must be elected through secret ballot in an election. Now, how then can he speak of electoral reform if he has removed himself from that very process, and then he says he has no faith in the government, in the presidency? The institutions that we have created, we must nurture them. We must give them the room to execute their mandate. If the IEBC, from his perspective, has fallen short of delivering to him his desired ambition to be the president of this nation, it doesn't mean that he has failed, for instance, and I say that with circumspect, to deliver for his Senator James Orengo, for his Senator Moses Wetangula. It hasn't failed them. So I think this is just a cloak, just to cover up this agenda for, as it were, agitating the government and ensuring that the governance atmosphere is such that it's not conducive for delivery of services. It is, in a way, trying to gain relevance outside the scope of the law. And unfortunately, if someone declares himself that he's coming to steal your car, excuse me, tomorrow, and he tells you that I will take up your car and drive it, and there is a law that says and classifies him as a thief, he is a thief. That law should take effect. So I think when Raila saw that the legal guns were cocked, when the Honorable Attorney General said that, look, this is treasonable. If you go and dare declare yourself, Section 40 of the Penal Code classifies you as an offender. And so I think that the NASA side saw that this is not a bluff anymore, and we cannot call off the bluff, and therefore, let us call this off. But what has it precipitated on the side of the NASA followers? It's a cowards. It's a people who tell us they're going to be sworn in. They don't have the courage to stand by their word. So they are leading us to a false canon.
So you believe the call for electoral reforms is just a cloak?
It's a cloak.
Even I disagree. Elections are at the center of democracy. And democracy is a continuous consolidation process. You can't argue with certainty that no country has lessons to learn from the past. Now, certainly Kenya, as an emerging democracy, has certain weaknesses, that has opportunities, that also presents opportunities for consolidation going into the future. Let me say that insofar as the electoral contest is concerned for the 2017, that is settled. So if you're talking about opportunities for innovation, reimagining our electoral process, then you're talking about in the context of 2022. And because I've said that, let me now say the following. I see constitutional and law reform related issues. I see institutional strengthening issues. I see trust related issues, and I see also religious and other institutions playing a critical role between now, the intervening period, and the next election, because our history has shown us that we defer too much and too late to the dying days of the electoral cycle to begin to activate the discussion on what is it that we can do to improve the election outcome. I think it's better, and world over, election discussion begins with the publication of an election report. So IBC must give us their own election report, the 2017 combined election report that covers the 8th August election and the October 26th election, telling us where they draw lessons from and giving us the shifts, what they have seen as improvement from the 2013 election, because that was the first election under the new constitution, so that Kenyans can see for themselves what is it that were the significant challenges in 2013 that are no longer challenges in 2017, and what are the emerging challenges in 2017 that will then be addressed so that in 2022 we don't have to repeat the same mistakes again. I'd like to point out a few. I think what we have succeeded from 2013, 2017, the question of enlarging the time, for instance, for election dispute resolution. Judges themselves have said, in fact, Justice Maraga, as the chair of when he was working the Judiciary Committee on election, he said that it's desirable to enlarge that time, expand it from 14 days to perhaps maybe 30 days, to give judges more time, not just a mechanical approach to interrogation of the issues, but a more detailed analysis of the questions presented before it so that they can make a decision that matches the expectation of the people. Number two, even now that you have seen that this the courts can actually nullify a presidential election, might we want to discuss whether 60 days is actually enough, for instance, to conduct a fresh election? Can we then say 90 days, for instance? Insofar as Article 134 is concerned, we saw that there's a lot of contestation, and if you look at the Constitution in terms of what we call architectural integrity and normative coherence, it means a reading of the Constitution places IBC outside the box of what may cause an election nullification. But now we have seen that the court said the October 8th, the August 8th election was nullified because of IBC, not because of Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta, because of IBC. How then this indicted IBC can then quickly transform and overcome its challenges within a short period, I think it became a challenge. And we may want to reflect, can we, with all the charitable assumptions, why we were saying Article 134 disallows the president from appointing commissioners, what is the lesson learned? Can we say that we amend that provision, that should it be that it's IBC that has messed an election, then there can be room to clear that IBC. But if that is not necessary, then let us debate it and say, we need not to amend that provision, but let us say that if IBC has the challenge, this is how we can address it. Those are so far as constitutional and election reform issues, but they're also
concerned. Yes, I'd just like you to pause there because I'd like to hear Harrison's reaction to that.
Well, I partially agree with him in the sense that, yes, we need to see the blueprint of the 2013, the 2017 two elections and see what challenges the IEBC has said that they were accosted by once they were able to surmount and once they were not able to surmount, and those that created the sort of crisis that we found ourselves in. That is commendable. That's pretty good. But that is not what NASA is saying. That's not where NASA is pointing us to.
Can I just remove NASA and Raila from the equation and the conversation?
Yes.
Where it's a conversation about the people of Kenya and where we go from here. So Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, William Ruto, and all of these characters will one day fade into the distance. So where are we as a nation as far as, you know, our state of the nation, our state of electoral reforms? Indeed, the Attorney General said there is no perfect election, but there is ways to continue to improve the manner in which we conduct them. Is that a conversation worth having?
Yes, and I wish we were that objective. I really wish our politicians were that objective. The way you have phrased it, the way you have put it, I wish we were that objective, but we are not. We are sucked into these tribal politics where unless the person bearing the name of my tribe does not ascend to the highest political seat, then I feel disenfranchised. Why has it got to sink to that level where it comes to a personal experience where I'm saying I feel disenfranchised? You feel that you are not part of it. Why? I mean, for instance, does Uhuru Kenyatta, for instance, give everybody in Gatundu money? He doesn't. Does he interact with everyone in Gatundu or everyone in Kiambu County?
So how do we solve that question? Because you raise a very important one where people feel disenfranchised by the system simply because maybe their person, you know, Mtuwetu has not gotten to the seat. So how do we, as Kenyans, start to solve that problem?
It calls for a personal decision for the Kenyan voter at the personal level to say that, look, I am going to look for an issue-driven politician. the one who will resolve my problems at the microcosmic level, and when we look at the national level, who will resolve the national issues. So we must shift from the tribal-centered politics to issue-centered politics, where the politicians look, for instance, at the bottlenecks that the Constitution has created, and then asks the Kenyan people, how can we resolve this without seeing...
So as a lawyer, what are some of those constitutional bottlenecks in your view?
Look, for instance, one of the issues that he's pointed out, the IEBC is supposed to conduct a fresh election within 60 days upon the nullification. And then this brought about the issue of nomination, for instance. Do you conduct the nomination within that period? Partially, I blame Parliament, because Parliament went to sleep immediately after the Constitution was enacted to foresee these scenarios. After the 2013 Supreme Court decision, those scenarios were enacted, although none of them had been, at that stage, been actualized. And so it behoved, in my view, partially the Attorney General and Parliament, to enact legislation which would have guided us, for instance, that nominations can be done with the scope of time if there is a fresh election, so as to clarify and remove the lacuna, the gaps that now resulted in the confusion that possibly Raila found himself in. That's one. And the second issue is what the Supreme Court the Chief Justice has said. We have such a narrow window of time within which to resolve this dispute.
Is that enough? 14 days?
14 days really is not enough.
It's actually not even 14 days that they hear the merits of the case, because that involves all of the pre-trial conferencing, the, you know, do we have the right documents and that sort of thing. So they end up, what, hearing the case for 10 days or maybe less?
Just a couple of days. And you give them the benefit because you see the volume of documents that are tendered there, and they are required to make that decision within that narrow window. And then everybody, just like one of the Supreme Court judges said earlier on in one of the clips, that if you make the decision as a Supreme Court judge, almost half, you're almost like assured, half of the Republic will be on your side, laughing all the way, and the other side will be, you know, like that. Why ought we be like this in this nation? In France, for instance, when Macron won, I mean, they have, quote-unquote, gone on. But why are we stuck in this position, and we do not want to see that we need to elevate our democracy beyond tribe?
All right.
Let's be issue-driven. Let's be national.
Those are some of the views. I want us to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we will talk about institutional reforms as well. That's what's happening at that level. And also, I will seek your expectations of what happens tomorrow, because the Supreme Court judges are set to give their reasoned verdict. What your expectations are of that as well. You're watching Checkpoint. We are back in just a short moment with your views as well. So let's keep talking. The hashtag is Checkpoint, at Yvonne Okwara, at KTN News. We'll be right back.